So I want you to picture this for a second. You're in the middle of a burning building. That final boss is only 2 rooms away. The building, again, is on fire, but you stop. And you stop to open a barrel. Not because you need what's inside the barrel. You don't actually know what's inside the barrel. It's probably just a single gold coin or a moth, or even nothing. 3 pixels of nothing, to be precise. But you want to open it anyway. Then you want to open the crate next to it. Then you check the dead guard's pockets, even though you watched him die literally 30 seconds ago. Here's the question that's going to bother you for the rest of this video. Why can't we just walk past that barrel? This video isn't really about the loot. It's about your brain. And it turns out that your brain has been doing this exact thing for about 2 million years, longer than video games have even existed. So let's get into it. In the late 1990s, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz was running experiments on monkeys studying dopamine, the brain chemical everyone loosely associates with feeling good. He'd give a monkey a squirt of juice and measure the dopamine spike. Pretty simple, right? But then something really strange showed up in the data. When Schultz started pairing the juice with a warning light a few seconds before the juice arrived, the dopamine spike moved. It didn't fire when the juice hit the monkey's tongue anymore. It fired when the light turned on. The reward itself stopped being the exciting part. The anticipation of the reward, the second half of something is about to happen, became the exciting part. Now hold that thought, because here's the part that should feel familiar to you. That little chime when a chest creaks open, the particle effect before an item's name appears in front of you, the drum roll of a slot machine, a booster pack peeling back, a loot crate's lid lifting in slow motion. Game designers didn't invent this. They just found the light switch evolution had already installed into your brains. And once you know how to look for it, you start noticing it's not really about the item. It's about the 2 seconds before you even see the item. Which raises an uncomfortable question. Have you ever felt a little deflated after opening loot, even if the loot was good? Because it's not a glitch in you. That's the dopamine system actually doing what it's supposed to do, paying you for the chase and not the catch. So why does anticipation matter so much in the first place? For that, we would have to go back further than monkeys with juice, way back to actual foraging. Researchers who study reward systems, including work building on Kent Berridge's research into dopamine and wanting versus liking, point out that this circuitry didn't evolve for treasure chests. It evolved for berries, prey, and finding mates for a creature that needed to be relentlessly motivated to search terrain that just might contain food, because the ones that weren't motivated enough simply didn't pass on those genes. And those creatures that we're talking about were your ancestors. Now, here's the unsettling bit. Your brain can't tell the difference between this bush might have a berry and this barrel might have a potion. Structurally, to your dopamine system, they are exactly the same task. Search, uncertainty, possible reward, repeat. So you're not role-playing as a treasure hunter. Several thousand generations of your ancestors actually were treasure hunters, and they're still in the driving seat. This is also why looting feels almost involuntary in the moment. It's like an itch rather than a decision. Decisions are slow, they're effortful. This is much older than that. This is closer to instinct, just using a controller. So in the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner ran a famous set of experiments on reinforcement schedules, which is basically how often do you need to reward a behaviour to make that behaviour stick? He actually found that a fixed reward, so get a treat every single time, would produce a weaker habitual behaviour than a variable reward, which is where the payout is random and unpredictable. This is called a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. It is, and it's not coincidentally, the exact mechanism behind slot machines, and it produces behaviour that's notoriously resistant to stopping. That's not a coincidence, And researchers studying loot box mechanics, including a widely cited 2018 paper published in Nature Human Behavior, have pointed out that game loot systems frequently share the structural DNA of gambling products: randomized rewards, variable value, and that little flicker of a near miss that makes you go, oh, almost, instead of, oh, whatever. Now, to be fair to barrels, crates, and chests everywhere, opening a free chest in an RPG and spending real money on a randomized loot box are not morally the same activity. One costs you 10 seconds, the other can cost you your house. But the engine underneath is still the same engine. Uncertainty plus reward equals, oh, I'll just open one more. You're not weak-willed. You're running on hardware that was tuned by a natural selection to fall for exactly this. Okay, but this still doesn't really explain why you're hoarding 17 slightly used gobbling teeth that you will never sell or use in the game. That's not exactly anticipation anymore. The chest is already open, so what's keeping it here? Psychologists studying motivation point to something called self-determination theory, which argues that humans are driven by three core needs: autonomy, which is essentially control; relatedness, so connection; and this is probably the most important one, competence, the feeling of being good at something, the feeling of progress. A full inventory bar is progress that you can physically see. An empty one is a problem that you haven't solved yet. And our brains are notoriously bad at leaving open problems alone. There's a long line of psychological research going all the way back to the 1920s, and the so-called, I'm going to butcher this, Zeigarnik effect, showing that incomplete tasks just sit there in your head, nagging, eating away in a way that complete tasks just don't. A game with one open chest left on the map is, neurologically speaking, an itch. A 100% completion screen is the world's tiniest little scratch. Researchers who study collecting behavior also note that the identity angle matters here too. Accumulating things lets you build a story about yourself. Like, I'm the kind of person who finds everything, which, harmless as it sounds in a game, is that same itch in its more extreme real-world form overlaps with hoarding-related research on acquisition and difficulty discarding. Most of us are nowhere near that line, but it's the same psychological neighbourhood, just a much, much friendlier street. And here's the twist though, and it's a nice twist. Unlike a slot machine, most loot in games isn't designed to take something away from you. It's designed to make things like a sword pommel feel more exciting. The same wiring that makes a barrel irresistible to open is the wiring that makes exploring a forest, finding a hidden room, or stumbling on a secret area feel genuinely joyful. It's not a design flaw. That's design working exactly as intended by people who, frankly, understand your brain a lot better than you do. The mystery from the cold open of this video wasn't really, why can't I walk past that barrel? It's that the barrel was never the point. The 2 seconds before you knew what was in the barrel, that was the point. Your brain paid you in that currency 100,000 years before barrels even existed, and it's not just going to stop now because the bush has been replaced with a chest. So next time you catch yourself sprinting past a dragon to go check on a barrel or go loot a guard, don't beat yourself up. You're not weird. You're not broken. You're a few 100,000 years of forager instincts wearing a controller doing exactly what you were built to do. You're just looking for berries. They just happen to look like swords now. If this video scratched the same itch as an unopened chest, please subscribe. I've got more of these coming, and unlike loot bosses, or boxes, it's completely free. See you later.